I just started to enjoy the quiet evening when the message came. Standing barefooted in the kitchen, the marble floor cool against my skin, sleeves rolled just enough to feel the edge of the night. I stood staring out through the window. One hand rested near a half-full glass of wine. I hadn't meant to stop drinking. I just got distracted watching the world blur. Then my phone vibrated and I pulled it out lazily from my back pocket. Expecting something from the office, or maybe one of my brothers asking if I was coming to another one of Father's late dinners. But it wasn't them. Meet me at room 709, Hotel Bellevue. I've got a surprise. No name. Just that. At first I laughed. Here he goes again. Marek. It had to be. He had a flair for things like that. Luxury, mystery, the art of making something mundane feel cinematic. There wasn't any doubt it was him. The hotel alone gave him away. That was where we first stayed overnight together, months ago, when we were still trying to pretend we weren't falling in love. And the number? 709. July 9th. The day we met. I felt the corners of my mouth tug upward. Babe, is this from you? I typed, still smiling. The reply came almost instantly. Don't be late. Of course not, I thought. I didn't change clothes. I wasn't wearing anything extravagant, but that was never the point with Marek. He liked when I looked effortless. Said I dressed like I didn't need to impress anyone, which always made him smile in that way he does when he's proud of something. Still, I straightened my collar, smoothed a hand down my coat, and checked my reflection in the hallway mirror before stepping out. The elevator took me down from the penthouse, its interior silent except for the faint ticking of my watch. I glanced at it out of habit. The minute hand was just barely ahead of the hour. It always ran fast by 2 or 3 minutes. I never fixed it. It was my grandfather's, the last gift he gave me before everything in the family got colder. Outside, the cab ride to Bellevue was short. The streets were slick and glowing, rain painting the asphalt with streaks of red and gold. I didn't say much to the driver. I was lost in thought, letting my mind wander to what Marek might have planned. It could be anything with him. He once filled an entire hotel room with hydrangeas just because I said I liked the way they looked wilting. He had a way of turning affection into spectacle. Not in a bad way, just loud. I never knew how to return it in kind. I didn't grow up with grand gestures. In our house, affection was polite nods at birthday dinners and legacy dinners with place cards. Nothing was surprising. Not until Marek. Of course, not everyone saw it that way. Rafe, my best friend, once said that Marek tried too hard. He said it with a look, that curled smirk of his, like he was too tired to even pretend to be subtle about it. He's playing a role, he told me. You just like being the star of someone's show. I told him he was being a snob, and maybe a little jealous, which would have been ridiculous coming from anyone else, except it was Rafe. Rafe, who could be unreadable at the best of times and strange at the worst. He started acting distant after Marek and I got serious. Cold, sarcastic, always quick to remind me of Marek's flaws, like he was doing me a favor. It got worse in the weeks before we stopped talking entirely. That last fight still plays back sometimes, his voice low, but his words sharp, in the way only someone who knows you too well can manage. We haven't spoken in over 3 months. I've seen his name flash on my phone once or twice since, but I never opened the messages. Whatever he thinks, whatever he knows, I'm not letting him derail tonight. Marek planned something for me. And God, I love surprises. The Bellevue lobby was just as I remembered. Quiet, clinical, beautiful. Marble floors that barely echoed your footsteps. Art that looked more expensive than expressive. And a front desk that didn't ask questions when you walked straight to the elevator. I didn't check in. I didn't need to. The elevator opened with a soft chime, and I stepped inside, pressing the number 7. As it rose, I glanced at my watch again as the elevator slowed. The hallway was dim, golden, quiet, carpet thick enough to drown sound. I walked slowly, hands tucked into my pockets, my heart not racing, but it felt like a good kind of night, a private kind of night. When I reached the door, I paused. Not for long, just enough to enjoy the moment before it changed. Then I knocked, gently. But before my hand even touched the wood, the door clicked open. Not all the way, just enough to suggest invitation. No welcome. No sound. I stepped inside. The room dim, the lights had been lowered to a golden hue, casting everything in a kind of late afternoon warmth. A candle flickered near the wall, its flame barely moving. The air was cool, but comfortable. It smelled faintly of bergamot and fresh bread, which was strange and oddly comforting. I walked further into the hotel room and noticed a table had been set near the windows. Round, clothed in white, with 2 chairs pulled out just slightly like they'd been waiting. 2 wine glasses, cutlery placed with quiet precision. And food, an entire spread, arranged like a still life. My eyes moved across the table slowly, and it took me a moment to realize what I was seeing. Roasted sea bass with lemon and thyme. A small plate of olives and marinated artichokes, the kind I always steal off Marek's plate. Even the bread was from that tiny Italian place in Westbury I once raved about in passing. I'd only mentioned it once, a year ago. I smiled, taking a step closer. There was dessert too. A dark chocolate souffle resting in a porcelain ramekin, dusted with just enough powdered sugar to make it look accidental. A silver spoon beside it, perfectly aligned. My heart swelled at the gesture. Of course Marek remembered. Of course he went this far. It was just Him. Everything always felt bigger with him. Curated, intentional, a little surreal. And for someone like me, who had spent so long learning how to fade into the background that sometimes forgot what it felt like to be seen, this is just making me fall in deeper. I glanced around for him, expecting him to step out from the bathroom or emerge with champagne, grinning that grin that made people follow him into trouble. But no one came. "Marek?" I called, softly. No response. I moved deeper into the room. There was music playing, something ambient and slow, almost imperceptible. A few deep cello notes that seemed to fold themselves into the walls, and then I saw it. A sheer veil separated the far side of the suite, thin, white, gently swaying as if touched by a passing breeze. Behind it stood a figure, tall, still, wearing a tailored suit and something pale across the face, a mask, smooth, almost blank. My breath caught, but not from fear. More from the surprise of it. Performance art, maybe? Marek's idea of drama? I let out a soft laugh. Okay, you win. This is definitely a surprise. The figure didn't move, just stood there, tall, poised, half concealed behind the thin veil. The mask on their face caught a slant of candlelight, and for a moment it looked more like porcelain than anything human. I let out a breath I hadn't meant to hold. Okay, I murmured, slower this time. This is freaky. Still no answer. I took a cautious step back, putting more distance between the table and myself. Who are you? I asked, the softness in my voice thinning. What's going on? That's when the voice came, smooth but mechanical, like it had been filtered through some device. It wasn't loud, and it wasn't threatening, which somehow made it worse. Come on now, no need to be scared. That stopped me. The tone was so calm, like someone comforting a guest who just wandered into the wrong party. Have a seat, Kaelen Ives Darcy? The stranger just said my full name. I hadn't heard it spoken like that in years. Not even my parents used it anymore. It sounded like something pulled from an old school record or a will. I stood there, uncertain, heart beginning to race now. Not wildly, just enough to notice it. If this is some elaborate prank from one of my brothers, I said, trying to keep my voice level. Tell them it's not funny. Really. I don't need some psychological theater night with a masked stranger. They didn't laugh, but they responded. Your brothers don't know about this, the voice said. My mouth went dry. I'm serious, I said. If this is something my family cooked up, you're safe, the voice continued. You don't need to panic, just stay until he comes. I swallowed. He? I asked, quieter now. Marek, the voice said, as if that should have been obvious. You came here for him, and I promise the wait will be worth it. Hey Daydreamers, thanks for tuning in. If you are liking this story so far, tell us where you are listening from in the comments section and hit the subscribe and notification buttons so you don't miss any story uploads. Let's continue. I sighed, the tension easing up a little bit. Nothing about the room screamed danger. The lights were soft, golden. The temperature sat in that perfect place between warm and comfortable. The candle's slow flicker felt like an old friend, not a threat. If anything, the quiet was too curated, like I had wandered into a set that had been built just for me, which now that I thought about it, maybe I had. I stepped forward and took the seat I had nearly backed away from minutes ago. The leather felt warmed, as if someone had been sitting there moments before. I rested my hands on the table, keeping my spine straight, not letting my body give away what my mind had already started to unravel. The stranger behind the veil didn't speak. They just stood there, tall and unmoving, like some elegant shadow meant to be noticed but not touched. Are you going to tell me who you are? I asked, trying to keep my voice light. Silence. Or is the whole mysterious masked figure part of the ambiance? Still nothing. I leaned back a little. The seat didn't creak. Even the furniture here was too well made for that. I glanced at the food again, still warm. Perfectly arranged. Too perfect. It was almost theatrical. Every dish, every plate, like it had been arranged for a photo shoot, or a memory. If this is some surprise Marek planned, I said, more to myself than to the stranger, he's really pushing it. I pulled it out, thumb hovering over Marek's name in my messages. He hadn't replied since the hotel text, which was unusual. Even when he was being dramatic, he never liked radio silence. I'm calling him, I said aloud. That was when the voice returned. I wouldn't, Kaelen. It'll ruin the surprise. I stilled. How do you even? It's not time yet, the stranger continued, still without moving. He'll be here. Just wait. You'll understand soon enough. I stared back at the veil, heart tapping harder against my ribs. Not alarmed, just disoriented. I exhaled slowly. The scent of thyme and roasted sea bass drifted upward. My stomach gave the tiniest twitch, not from hunger, but from memory. It was my comfort meal, something my nanny used to make on weekends when my parents were away in Monaco or Dubai or wherever they were avoiding being home. I reached toward the wine glass, then stopped. I'm not eating anything, I said. Not until Marek gets here, and not if I don't know what's in it. I heard a soft laugh from the stranger that wasn't threatening. It was amused. If I wanted to poison you, the stranger said with that subtle echo in the voice, I would have filled the room with lilies. You hate the smell. It makes your throat close. My hand dropped from the glass, and the soufflé would have been made with almonds, they added. You wouldn't have gotten past the first bite. A coldness slipped down my spine. Whoever this was, they weren't guessing. They knew. I swallowed. How do you know so much about me? No answer. Of course. I looked down at the soufflé. No almond scent, no danger as far as I could tell. But that wasn't the point. That wasn't what was digging under my skin. What was this? A performance? A gift? A test? The longer I sat, the more my thoughts began to untangle in strange directions. What kind of game was Marek playing? Was this a kink thing? I let my gaze wander across the room, trying not to let my thoughts trip over themselves. The suite wasn't like the one Marek and I had stayed in the first time. That one had been brighter, messier, champagne stains on the sheets, Marek's shirt tossed across the arm of the chair, me laughing half drunk with his hands all over me. That night had been spontaneous, chaotic, real. This was curated, designed in the way a museum is, intimate. Perfect, but frozen, and I'd been taught to be wary of perfect things. My father once told me, at the start of what was supposed to be a father-son bonding lunch at the golf club, that the best men never waited for the world to make room for them. They carved out their place. Charm is for men who don't own the table, he said, after I tried to compliment the server for remembering our drink orders. I was 14. That was the same year he started introducing my older brothers to boardroom meetings, mergers, and legacy contacts. I was given exactly 2 responsibilities: show up to the family photo sessions on time and don't embarrass the Darcy name. He never really looked at me the way he looked at them, as if I were something to be shaped. His gaze always passed over me. Not unkind, just uninterested. It used to hurt. Now it mostly just felt like background noise. Which is probably why I clung to people like Marek, people who saw me. At least I thought he did. I looked toward the figure again, watching the veil sway gently from the movement of the air. It hadn't spoken since the food comment. No movement, no shifting weight. Is this some kind of kink? I asked quietly. Because, if it is, he didn't clear this with me. No reply. I sighed and leaned back. Marek had suggested things before. Things that made me blush and laugh, sometimes both at once. The Florence trip. The blindfolds. The time he asked if I'd let him handcuff me to the bed. Just for fun. I'd said no that time. And the next. He always said it was fine, that he loved that I had lines, but sometimes he liked to press them, just to see if I'd move them for him. It wasn't malicious, it wasn't even that rare in our world. Power play was half the game in most relationships I knew. Still, I didn't like not knowing what I'd agreed to. I crossed my arms again, this time hugging myself without meaning to. He wouldn't do something like this without telling me. Would he? Would he? You really think I'm going to just sit here quietly and wait? I asked, mostly to fill the space. You already are, the stranger replied. Another beat passed. I looked down at my hands, one resting near the wine glass, the other near the edge of the table, fingers curled. My father would call this weakness. Sitting still, not demanding answers, not taking control of the room. He always said I let people walk over me, that I was too soft, that third sons didn't get the luxury of waiting. They had to seize what they wanted or be forgotten. I used to think he was wrong, but I also used to think I mattered to him. I shifted in my seat, suddenly aware of how warm the room had gotten. The candle beside me flickered again. And for a second, the flame bent toward the veil, as if drawn to it. I stared at the figure behind it. I'm still not eating, I said, quieter now. I never said you had to, the voice replied. I lost track of how long I'd been sitting there. The stranger still hadn't moved. The music had changed. I hadn't noticed when. Now a slow piano melody, drifting and weightless, like it had always been playing. I tried not to check the time, tried not to reach for my phone again. I was almost beginning to feel numb, not scared, not angry, just quiet. And then, the door burst open. It slammed against the wall like it had been kicked, and Marek stood in the doorway, eyes wide, chest heaving, rain in his hair. His coat was soaked, clinging to his arms, and for a second he looked more like a ghost than a man. Wild, dripping, out of breath and off balance. Babe, what the hell is this? His voice cracked across the room. He didn't wait. He crossed the suite in 3 long strides, eyes locked on me. Kael, he said, reaching for me. What's going on? Why are you here? I stood, but not all the way. My chair scraped softly against the floor as I half rose. You told me to come, I said. You sent the message. Room 709. I've got a surprise. That was you, right? Marek blinked. Water dripped from his hair to his jaw. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. I didn't send you anything. We both turned at the same time toward the veil. The stranger hadn't moved. Marek's hand dropped from my arm. His face twisted. Confusion first, then something sharper underneath. What is this? Who the fuck is that? The voice answered calmly. You're both exactly where I wanted you. The silence that followed the stranger's words felt too heavy for the room. You're both exactly where I wanted you. I turned to Marek. He was still standing, dripping wet, jaw clenched, eyes flicking from me to the masked figure like he was trying to pick which of us betrayed him first. What the fuck is going on? He said again, lower now. Not as sharp, just tired. The figure remained still, like just another fixture of the room, watching. I thought it was you, I said quietly. This whole thing, it felt like one of your surprises. Marek scoffed. Does this really look like one of my surprises? I didn't answer, because I didn't know. The lines had started to blur. But then when we turned again towards the masked figure behind the veil, he was no longer there. In his palace was a large projector that flickered on to reveal the masked figure. Sitting on a chair, reclined back like he was prepared to watch his favorite show. Oh, this is getting freaky. I don't know what is going on, and Marek obviously is confused. I don't care what kind of setup is this anymore, and it's no longer funny. One thing I know is that we have to get out of here. Marek's, though, mirrored Min. We have to get out of here, he said, so he led me towards the door. We tried the door. Of course it didn't open. Marek yanked at the handle like it owed him an apology. He shoved his shoulder against it and then turned back to me. It's locked, he said, as if I hadn't already guessed. Deadbolt. Must be keyed from the outside. I pulled out my phone. No signal. I frowned. Toggled airplane mode. Try again. Still nothing. That's not possible, I muttered. We're in the middle of the city. Bellevue always has service. It's intentional, Marek said, finishing the thought I didn't want to speak out loud. He moved to the window. We were on the 7th floor. Too high to jump, too low to attract much attention. No fire escape. No ledge. Just glass. Marek turned back to me, his whole body tight. We have to get out of here. This is fucked. Do you think it's a setup? I asked. A prank? I don't know, he said, and for once there was nothing smooth in his voice. But it's not mine. Just then, in the middle of our panic, you met 2 years ago, the stranger said suddenly, voice drifting out from the projector. We both turned towards the projector. You were wearing a green coat that day, the voice continued, and Marek borrowed a lighter he didn't need. He doesn't even smoke. Marek didn't respond. You gave it to him anyway, the voice said to me. You smiled? He told you he liked your laugh. A beat passed. I looked at Marek. Is that true? He nodded once. Yeah, that part's true. Did you need the lighter? He hesitated. No. Why lie about that? It was a flirt, he said, brushing a hand through his wet hair. It was nothing. The stranger asked, when did you first lie to him and decide not to correct it? I blinked. Marek didn't speak. Excuse me, he said finally. That wasn't directed at you, the stranger said. That was for him. They meant me. Me. I laughed, short, flat. I haven't lied to Marek. Not even by omission, the voice asked. Not even once? I looked at Marek, suddenly unsure what counted anymore. There were things I didn't say. But that wasn't the same as lying, was it? No, I haven't. I have no reason to, I said. Then can the same be said for you, Marek? The voice asked. Marek stepped forward. Enough of this. Let us out of here. You have no idea who you are dealing with here. The figure didn't respond, wasn't even fazed by the threat. We both stood there in silence. After some time, something had shifted. The air wasn't heavier, just tighter. Like someone had stretched the room out from the corners, pulling the tension thin across the surface. I turned to Marek. What are they talking about? Have you lied to me? No, he said quickly. Too quickly. I stared at him. Are you sure? His jaw clenched again. Kaelen, don't do this. You know me. I do. And Marek gave a sigh of relief. The stranger said nothing. I sat back down in the chair, slower this time. Marek stayed standing, pacing near the window like a man trying to outrun a thought. Something is going on, and I am more curious to find out than being afraid. You're being quiet, I said. He shot me a look. I'm trying not to escalate. I tilted my head. Escalate what? This. All of this. We're being watched by some freak in a mask who apparently knows everything about us and locked us in here like it's a fucking escape room. But it's not, is it? I asked softly. Marek stopped pacing, picked up a towel to dry his hair, and finally dropped into the chair across from me, running both hands through his hair. It stuck in wet tufts. His cologne had long since faded, replaced by the clean, sharp scent of rain and nerves. Kael, he said. I didn't bring you here. I don't know who this person is. I don't know what they want. But they know us, I said. Too well. He looked at me for a long moment. Something like panic flickered behind his eyes. But it didn't bloom. Not yet. Do you trust me? He asked. I didn't answer. Not because I didn't want to, but because I wasn't sure what trust looked like in a room like this. I am way too confused right now, and nothing is adding up. The projector hummed back to life, but no image appeared this time. Just that low whir filling the suite like a second pulse. Marek and I stood in the golden light, both waiting for something, anything, when the stranger's voice slipped back into the air. Let's play a game, he said, slow and calm. It's called 20 questions. Marek let out a sharp laugh. No thanks. I'm not asking, the voice replied. You don't have a choice. The sooner you answer, the sooner you get out. Why? Marek shot back, his voice rising. Why are you doing this? There was a pause, deliberate, heavy. Then the distorted tone again. You'll find out soon. My throat was dry. I didn't move. The voice continued. First question. How did you two meet? I turned to Marek. He glanced at me, then back toward the veil of light. Is this a joke? He muttered. Answer, the voice said simply. Marek sighed, then slid into the familiar smile he used when telling our story. It was raining, he said. We both ducked into the same cafe. He was sitting by the window, all alone, looking. He glanced at me, softened a little, looking like someone I wanted to know, so I asked him for a lighter I didn't need. Despite everything, I almost smiled, and I gave it to him anyway. Marek nodded, and we talked for hours. It felt like... He trailed off, searching for the word. Fate, I supplied. Exactly. Fate. For a moment, the room felt warmer, familiar, like we were remembering something good. Then the voice cut in. Fate. The stranger repeated, the words stretched with disdain. A scoff followed. Is that what you call it? Before I could answer, the voice continued. Look to your left, top shelf, the black folder. I froze. Marek's head snapped toward me, but the voice gave no further instruction. My legs moved before I could think better of it. I crossed the room, reached for the shelf, and pulled down a thick folder I hadn't noticed before. Black leather, heavy in my hands. "Open it," the voice said. I did. Inside were photographs. Pages of them. Me leaving my office, me stepping out of the penthouse lobby, me at dinners, at cafes, even jogging along the river in the early mornings when I thought no one was awake. Tucked between the photos were notes, pages of them. My favorite restaurants, the brand of my watch, the dates of my family's charity galas, even the name of the boarding school I'd been expelled from at 15, something I hadn't told Marek until months after we met. My stomach dropped. I turned to Marek, holding the folder open. "What the hell is this?" His face had gone pale, his lips parting without sound. "Marek," my voice cracked. "What is this?" He swallowed hard, then said, "Kael, it's not what it looks like." "Not what it looks like?" I snapped, slamming the folder onto the table. The papers fanned out across the pristine tablecloth, my life in ink and photographs. "This is a report. On me. Every detail. You knew all of this before we ever spoke." He raked a hand through his hair, pacing once in a tight circle. "I just wanted to know you before I approached you. I didn't want to." He stopped. "I didn't want to risk you dismissing me before I had the chance to prove I was worth it." I stared at him, chest hollow. "So it wasn't fate?" "No." His voice cracked now, "but it was real, Kael. Everything after that moment was real." I closed my eyes, remembering the rain streaking down the cafe window, the heat of his gaze across the table. It had felt real then, but had it ever been? "You manipulated it," I whispered. "You didn't have to." "I know," he said, voice breaking. "I'm sorry, I am. I only wanted a chance, and if I'd just walked up to you as myself, you never would have." "Stop." I cut him off, shaking my head. "Don't say that. You didn't need to do this. You didn't need to stalk me to make me notice you. I would have said yes anyway." The words hung there, heavy, painful. Because I meant them. Marek looked at me with something almost like shame, then stepped closer. "Then please believe me when I say I never wanted to hurt you. This was just how it started, not how it went on. I've been good to you, haven't I? I've loved you, haven't I?" I didn't answer right away. My hands were still trembling from holding the folder, but part of me wanted to reach for him, because it was true. Since that day he had given me laughter, warmth, late-night confessions. He had been nothing short of good to me. His beginning might have been twisted, but the months that followed felt genuine. And maybe that was enough. For a moment I just stood there, staring down at the pages scattered across the table, my life dissected into photographs and bullet points. It should have repulsed me. It should have made me want to storm for the door, to never look at him again. But my heart betrayed me. I remembered that day at the cafe in the rain, how the windows blurred the city into soft gray streaks, how the warmth of Marek's laugh cut through the dampness like sunlight. I remembered the way he leaned forward across the table, as though I was worth leaning toward, and how my chest filled with a quiet, startled certainty. This is different. Before him, every approach had felt like a negotiation. Dinners that were more about my last name than my company. Smiles from men who calculated my value the way they read a balance sheet. Every kiss tainted by the sense that something was being traded. Access, money, proximity. Nothing had been freely given. But Marek hadn't felt like that. He had seemed whole, untethered, established in his own light. He dressed like he didn't need me, spoke like a man who already knew the weight of himself, and I believed him. That was why it was so easy. That was why it was different. And so what if it had been planned? What if he had studied me like a portfolio before walking into that cafe? My heart softened despite myself because he had still stayed. He hadn't taken and left like the others. He hadn't treated me like a transaction. He had made me laugh. He had made me feel wanted. But the thought twisted even as it warmed me. Was it good because he had truly seen me, or because he had done his research well? Was I supposed to commend him for the effort, or run from him because I'd fallen in love with a stalker? I'd exhaled slowly. "I want to forget this," I admitted. "Because whatever you did to get to me, once you were there, you stayed. That's what matters." Marek's shoulders dropped in relief. "Thank you," he whispered, and for a fleeting second I almost believed we'd patched the first tear. But then the stranger's voice returned, slow and mocking. "Oh, how sweet." I froze. "Let's see what else you lied about." The projector hummed louder, ready to load the next round. The stranger's voice came again, even and deliberate, cutting through the heavy silence like a blade through fabric. "Question number 2, where did you say you're from again?" Marek stiffened, his hands balled into fists at his sides, his jaw locking so tight I could see the muscle twitch. "What the fuck are you doing?" he snapped, his voice ricocheting off the walls of the suite. Don't you dare." I turned toward him slowly, dread beginning to climb into my throat. "Marek?" He glared toward the projector's glow like he could burn it out with his eyes. "Shut up, whoever the hell you are, shut the fuck up." I didn't like the way he said it. He sounded less angry than afraid. "I don't like where this is going," I murmured. "Answer the question, Marek," the voice commanded. Calm, patient, implacable. He didn't move. "Answer," the voice pressed again. "Who sent you?" Marek barked, his tone brill and fraying. "What are you doing here? What's your angle? What the fuck do you want from us?" I looked between him and the projector, my heart hammering. "What's going on?" You told me you were from Madrid. Your parents, The voice cut me off, smooth as a hand closing over mine. Kaelen, it said. Is that what he told you? I swallowed. Yes, that's what he told me. Is it true, Marek? I turned to him, my voice breaking around the edges. Babe, please tell me you didn't lie about that too. Marek said nothing. He stood there, his whole body coiled like a wire about to snap, his eyes drilling holes into the machine projecting the voice. Not looking at me, not answering me, the stranger sighed, almost theatrically. Well, allow me to introduce you then. The projector hummed louder and the wall came alive. It wasn't grainy this time, it was crisp, clear. The first photo showed a modest street in a small town. Bright houses with faded shutters, a bakery on the corner, laundry strung across balconies. Then another slide. 2 people in their late 50s smiling shyly at the camera outside that same bakery. A man with a baker's apron dusted in flour. A woman in a floral dress, her hair streaked with silver. Mr. and Mrs. Solis, the voice narrated, deliberate. Alive, well, still running their bakery in Valencia. My stomach dropped. Slide after slide followed. Their house, their shop, Marek as a boy with messy hair and a gap-toothed smile standing between them. Birthday parties with paper hats, school certificates tucked into worn frames. Nothing glamorous, but nothing tragic either, just life. They are not dead, the voice said. They never were. Not wealthy, not powerful, just ordinary people, average, honest, unlike their son. The photos vanished, leaving the room dim again. I turned to Marek, my voice trembling. You told me your parents were dead. You told me you grew up alone, I faltered, choking on it. Why would you lie about that? Why? His face was hard, his eyes burning. Because I loved you, he said, the words flung like a weapon. Because I needed to fit into your world, and no one in your world wants to hear about a baker's son. The projector hummed louder, and the wall came alive. It wasn't grainy this time. It was crisp, clear. The first photo showed a modest street in a small town. Bright houses with faded shutters, a bakery on the corner, laundry strung across balconies. Then another slide. 2 people in their late 50s smiling shyly at the camera outside that same bakery. A man with a baker's apron dusted in flour. A woman in a floral dress, her hair streaked with silver. Mr. and Mrs. Solis, the voice narrated, deliberate. Alive, well, still running their bakery in Valencia. My stomach dropped. Slide after slide followed. Their house, their shop, Marek as a boy with messy hair and a gap-toothed smile standing between them. Birthday parties with paper hats, school certificates tucked into worn frames. Nothing glamorous, but nothing tragic either. Just life. They are not dead, the voice said. They never were. Not wealthy, not powerful, just ordinary people, average, honest, unlike their son. The photos vanished, leaving the room dim again. I turned to Marek, my voice trembling. You told me your parents were dead. You told me you grew up alone, I faltered, choking on it. Why would you lie about that? Why? His face was hard, his eyes burning. Because I loved you, he said, the words flung like a weapon. Because I needed to fit into your world, and no one in your world wants to hear about a baker's son. I stood up, pacing away from him, my hand pressed to my forehead. The room felt smaller, tighter, the walls creeping closer with every breath. You could have told me the truth, I said. You could have trusted me enough to. I couldn't, he snapped, his voice breaking mid-word. He dragged his hands down his face, pacing now too. You don't get it, Kael. I watched you glide through life like it was always prepared for you. Designer clothes, that goddamn penthouse view. You've never been on the outside, pressing your face to the glass. You don't know what it's like to feel beneath, to feel small. To know that every step you take is already behind everyone else's starting line. I stopped, staring at him. I would have still liked you, I whispered. Even if you were the baker's son. Even if you had come to me with nothing but that. He gave a sharp laugh, bitter, humorless. Don't make me say it. Say it. His jaw clenched, his teeth grinding as if the words hurt to form. You wouldn't have looked at me, he muttered. Not the way you did that night, not the way you do now. That's not true. Yes, it is. His voice cracked wide open, echoing off the suite's walls. He turned on me, eyes blazing, something raw and ugly spilling out. You were born with a silver spoon in your mouth, Kaelen. You and your family, your penthouse, your heirloom watch, your whole goddamn world handed to you on a velvet tray. You think you'd have looked twice at some kid wearing knockoff shoes, working 3 jobs to keep the lights on? You think you'd have given me anything more than a polite smile? I stood there, silent. Not because I agreed, not because I didn't, but because the question carved me open in a place I didn't know existed. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. I wanted to scream at him for lying, for rewriting himself, for letting me fall in love with someone he'd invented. But all I could see the boy who had clawed his way into becoming the man before me. My heart twisted. Against my will, pity slid in alongside the anger. I wasn't sure which hurt more. Finally, Marek looked away, his chest heaving. That's why I lied. That's why I killed off my parents in stories. Why I turned my life into something shinier, bigger. Because I couldn't risk losing you before I ever had you. I closed my eyes, my heart aching in 1,000 places at once. If this was his great lie, I could live without it. But living without it meant living with the knowledge that everything I thought I knew had been rewritten. My love wasn't built on trust. It was built on an illusion. My head dropped into my hands, the exhaustion finally crashing down. My heart hurt. God, it hurt. Why was this happening? Who was this masked man, and why had he been sent to dismantle us piece by piece? And why was Marek's shame the sharpest knife of all? If Rafe ever heard of this, I thought bitterly, I'd never hear the end of it. He'd warned me, hadn't he? He'd always said Marek was wrong for me, that there was something calculated about the way he moved through my life. He would love this vindication. He'd wear it like a crown. The voice returned, mockingly soft. So sweet, the stranger said, so tragic. Marek snapped, his anger crackling in the air. I hope you're happy now. You got what you wanted. Everything's ruined. The voice chuckled, low and deliberate. Happy? No, I'm just getting started. My stomach flipped. Oh God, I whispered. What now? I turned to Marek. There's more. What else did you lie about? Nothing, he said quickly, desperately. His eyes darted to me, then back toward the projector's glow. Kael, I swear, that's all. Then, toward the screen. You bastard. What do you want from us? What do you hope to gain? The stranger only sighed, the sound distorted and distant, like a man growing tired of children who hadn't yet learned their lesson. Question number 3, he said at last. Marek, what do you say you do for a living again? My stomach turned. Marek straightened a little, trying to gather himself, his chest still rising and falling too quickly from the last round. His tone was practiced, smoother than his expression. I work in consulting, he said. Strategy and networking. You know that. Yes, the stranger replied, even. I do know, because I also know that's only half the truth. The projector blinked, then bloomed into light again. The first image was innocuous enough. Marek in the lobby of a hotel I didn't recognize, leaning against the marble check-in counter. He was wearing the dark coat I knew, the one that smelled faintly of cedar and cologne whenever I pulled it from our closet. His arm was draped casually around the shoulder of a man I didn't know. Not posed, not stiff, familiar. Marek's whole body tightened beside me. That was before us, he said too quickly. The projector clicked. Another image. Same lobby. Different man this time. Older, his suit too sharp, his expression the kind I'd seen in boardrooms. Marek was laughing. His hand rested just above the man's belt. Still before us, Marek said, his voice cracked on the last word. Kael, come on. My eyes narrowed. I bought that jacket for you 2 months ago, I said, gesturing to one of the outfit he wore in the picture. The silence that followed dropped like a stone. The projector shifted again. Another man, another hotel. Always the same comfort in the way Marek leaned into them, the same ease in their smiles as if they'd known each other far longer than a night. What is this? My voice barely made it out. Marek didn't answer. The next slide wasn't a photo, it was a bank transfer. Large, labeled with the name of a luxury hotel chain. 5 nights, paid in full by someone else. Another slide, another transaction. Different name. Same hotel room number, 410. Same duration, 5 nights, always 5. My throat closed. You said you were working, I said, staring at him. That week when I called and you cut me short, you told me you were exhausted, buried in clients. I was, he said quickly, then faltered. I mean, not that kind of work, I finished for him. The stranger's voice sliced the air. He was paid to be there. Marek's head snapped toward the projector, fury sparking. Shut up! But the words landed anyway. Something cold rippled through me. I turned to him, voice shaking. Is that true? No, he said, his face paling. No, that's not what you think. It wasn't. The projector ticked again. This time it was a message thread. The name on top, D. Marinelli. D. I'll have the usual ready. Same room, same rate. Marek, appreciate it. Always a pleasure. I froze. The shirt he wore in the photo attached to the thread, I recognized it. The navy silk with the mother of pearl buttons. Another one I had gotten for him barely 3 weeks ago. Oh my God. My chair scraped back as I stood. My pulse thudded in my ears. You were sleeping with them, weren't you? It wasn't like that, Marek said quickly. Too quickly. His hands rose, reaching toward me. Kael, listen to me. It wasn't always like that. Not always? My voice cracked, rising. So sometimes it was? He flinched. My chest burned. Anger was stirring now, climbing hot and uncontainable. And all those times you said you were traveling for work, those endless nights you didn't pick up my calls. I gestured wildly at the wall, the frozen images of him with strangers. This is what you were doing? The realization hit like a blow. My stomach lurched. I clamped a hand to my mouth, the bile already rising. Oh God. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over the chair. My chest heaved, my throat burning. I bolted for the bathroom. The door slammed shut behind me. I barely made it to the toilet before everything came up. Wine, the bite of bass I'd managed earlier, my stomach twisting violently until nothing was left. I collapsed against the cold tile, breathed ragged, tears breaking loose in spite of me. Not just a stalker, not just a liar, a whore. My lover was a whore. My palms pressed against my eyes, hot wetness spilling between my fingers. What did I do to deserve this? What sin had I committed to sit here on the floor of a gilded hotel suite, discovering the man I loved had been bought and sold like a commodity? Outside, muffled through the door, I could hear Marek shouting. Something crashed, glass shattering. You fucking bastard, his voice was hoarse, breaking into curses. You ruined everything, everything. The stranger's voice floated back, calm, almost clinical. Calm down, no need to explode. How long did you think you could keep this from him? Marek's roar cut through, feral, furious. Shut your mouth, shut the fuck up. Another crash, something heavy hitting the wall. I curled tighter against the tiles, sobbing into my knees. Minutes passed. I don't know how many. Finally, I forced myself up, splashed water on my face, and opened the door. The suite was wrecked. A lamp smashed, the wine spilled across the tablecloth, Marek pacing like a caged animal. He froze when he saw me, his face softened, and in 3 steps he was at my feet. Kael, I'm sorry. His voice cracked. He sank to his knees, hands reaching for mine. I never meant for you to find out like this. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was desperate. I pulled my hands back. I couldn't feel anything. Not rage, not love, just nothing. Numbness swallowing me whole. I needed the money, he said, his voice breaking. You don't understand, Kael. I grew up with nothing, and suddenly I was in a world where everything cost more than I could breathe. The suits, the dinners, the hotels, your world. I had to keep up. He stayed there, kneeling, spilling excuses and apologies. I stared past him, hollow. Kaelen, the stranger's voice intruded softly. Are you all right? I turned, my glare slicing toward the projector like I could burn through the screen. What? My voice was flat, deadened. Do you have more bullets to throw at me? A pause. Then the voice. Now I don't know if I should show you anymore. A bitter laugh broke from my throat. I turned on Marek, still crouched in front of me. Oh, there's more? My voice trembled into a jagged edge. What else? You're not a guy but a girl? You're not 30, you're 50? You're younger? Older? What the else did you fucking lie about? I shoved him back, rising to my feet, anger finally cutting through the numbness. I looked up toward the projector, every nerve in me raw. Get me out of here. I can't stand to be in the same room as him. The voice sighed, long and patient. I'm afraid I can't. Not until the last question, I promise. My shoulders slumped, exhaustion dragging at every muscle. Fine. My voice was hoarse. What is it? Go ahead and ask. I don't think there's anything left that could shock me. The voice hummed, almost like laughter. Kaelen, it said. Now that's where you're wrong. I sat slumped in the chair, hollowed out, while Marek crouched near my knees, whispering apologies I couldn't even process anymore. The stranger's voice came, steady, unyielding. Question number 4. What exactly have you been doing with those company files you accessed under Kaelen's clearance? My head jerked up. What? Marek froze. The projector flicked back to life. First, a series of screenshots. Internal memos from Hale and Darcy, my father's firm. Marked attachments flagged confidential. Next, timestamps. Forwarded out at 2:14 a.m. The same night, Marek had pressed a kiss to my temple and told me to stop working, to get some sleep, that he'd take care of me. No, I whispered. I felt the blood drain from my face. The stranger narrated, calm and merciless. Your boyfriend has been selling proprietary reports to Calderon Partners, your father's competitor, for nearly a year. Each transfer routed through shell accounts. Each document traced back to your login credentials. I was already shaking my head, even as the reality of the situation keeps crashing down hard on me. No, I whispered. That was... But the projector was merciless. Transaction records. Money. Marek's name buried under false IDs. Then, photos. Marek meeting a man in a dimly lit garage, a flash drive exchanging hands. My stomach twisted. My vision blurred. Memories cracked open like eggshells. My father's voice, sharp as a lash. You've humiliated this family. You're reckless. Sloppy. I trusted you with nothing more than crumbs, and still you managed to fail. The shame of standing there in his office, my brothers watching with faint smirks. The boardroom whispers. The headlines. My clearance revoked. Firing 2 loyal staff members because I'd convinced myself it was them. Watching their faces collapse as I signed the termination papers. And Marek, always Marek, raging for me. How dare they treat you like that, Kael? You've given everything and they treat you like nothing. Your father doesn't deserve you. But I do. I'll never leave you. Oh God, it had been him all along. I lurched to my feet, fury igniting through the exhaustion, white hot and blinding. I turned on him, every nerve in me snapping loose. You, I roared, my voice breaking the air. It was you. Marek rose quickly, hands half raised. Kael, listen. I didn't. I shoved him hard, slamming him back against the wall. The thud echoed. My hands gripped his collar, rage pouring out of me. You did this. My voice ripped through the room, feral, raw. I almost lost everything. My father dragged me through the mud. I fired people who trusted me. And you were the one who gutted me from behind, and then held me while I bled? Marek's face cracked. For a split second, I thought I saw shame, but then he laughed, a low, bitter laugh that chilled the air. Oh, Kael, he sneered. You were so fucking easy. I stopped breathing. My grip faltered. What? I said rather softly in disbelief. All I had to do, he went on, voice rising, was tell you what you'd been starving to hear your whole life, that you mattered, that you weren't invisible, and he jabbed a finger at my chest. You fell apart, you tore down every wall, you gave me everything. You were my easiest conquest, easiest. Why the fuck wouldn't I take advantage? The words hollowed me out. I lunged at him, shoving him hard into the wall, my hands fisting in his collar. The sound of his back hitting plaster cracked like thunder. How could you? I screamed, my voice shredding in my throat. How could you do this to me? To us? He laughed in my face, spit hitting my cheek. Because you were pathetic enough to let me. White-hot fury took me as I didn't hesitate to hit him this time. My fist cracked across his jaw, a jolt of pain tearing through my knuckles. His head snapped sideways, blood blooming at the corner of his mouth. He smiled, then he struck back. The blow split my lip, the taste of iron flooding my mouth. He shoved me down hard, my back slamming against the broken table. Before I could breathe, he was on top of me, straddling me, fists raining down. You think you're different? He spat between blows. You're not. You're just like the others. Weak, needy, desperate for someone to look at you like you exist. All the money and access in the world, yet still so pathetic. I raised my arms blocking, but his fists kept coming, the room spinning red. My ribs ached, my cheeks stung, his voice pouring venom into every word. You begged for me, Kael. You begged to be seen, and I made you mine. That's all you ever were, mine to play with. Stop, I gasped, trying to twist away. Marek, but his weight was heavy on me. And then, Marek was ripped off me, flung across the room like a rag doll, crashing into the broken table. I rolled to my side, gasping, my vision clearing just enough to see who had pushed him off me. The figure was there, the masked man. Standing solid in the room, gloved hands still trembling with the force of the throw, the mask gleaming in the low light. He stood between us, tall and unshaken. His voice came low, vibrating with menace. Lay another filthy hand on him again, he growled, pointing a gloved finger at Marek, and I will make sure you leave this room as a bag of bones. Believe me. Something in me snapped at those words, that phrase, believe me. I knew someone who always added that when he threatened. Not casually, not as a bluff. It was a tell, carved into memory. My stomach flipped, my mind fighting itself. No, it can't be. Marek dragged himself up, blood on his lip, his shirt torn. He laughed, a jagged sound that curdled the air. Well, the coward behind the mask finally crawls out. He spread his arms mockingly. Tell me, do you feel proud of yourself? Hiding in shadows, pulling strings like some jealous parasite? The figure said nothing, but then reached up. Fingers hooked the edge of the mask. With a slow, deliberate motion, he pulled it free. Rafe's face emerged. Every line familiar, every shadowed angle of a man I'd known since boyhood. My best friend, my rival, my confidant. My legs almost gave. Rafe? I breathed. Of course it's you. Marek spit out bitterly, his face scrunched up in disgust. Oh, Kael. Marek turned to me, his grin sharp with cruelty. You really didn't know? Your precious best friend's been drooling over you since forever. That's why he hated me. That's why he fed you poison about me. And you, stupid lovesick you ignored it. My throat locked. Shut up, that's not true, I rasped, but Marek only laughed harder. Of course he's in love with you. He's been waiting for you to crawl back the second I slipped, and look, here he is, the knight with his mask, pretending this was all for you. Wake up, Kael. He didn't do this to save you. He did this to have you. My heart slammed against my ribs. Rafe turned to me and met my eyes with steady intensity. I warned you. I begged you. You didn't listen. His gaze flicked to Marek. So I made sure you would. Marek snarled. You had no right. Rafe's lip curled. I had every right. You were bleeding him dry. I wasn't going to let you take everything from him. Before I could speak, Rafe reached into his jacket and tapped something in his earpiece. Within seconds, the suite door burst open. Two men in black suits strode in, purposeful. The kind of men who didn't ask questions. They just carried out orders. Marek stiffened, panic flashing across his face. What the fuck is this? Rafe didn't move, didn't blink. You're done, Marek, the men closed in. Marek stumbled back, fists raised, his voice cracking. Don't touch me, I stepped forward, my heart hammering. Wait, what's happening? Rafe finally turned to me. His face was calm, too calm. I sent your father everything. The emails, the transfers, the footage. He knows it was Marek. And when I called, he didn't hesitate. He sent his men. My stomach dropped. You told my father? Rafe's eyes didn't flinch. I had to. He would have destroyed you if he thought you were guilty. This was the only way to clear your name. Marek's voice cut through, high with desperation. Kael, don't let him do this. He's feeding you lies. He's always hated me. The men grabbed his arms, twisting them behind his back. He thrashed, wild, his words breaking into curses. Kael, say something. Tell them it's not true. Please, please. But Rafe's voice carried over him, sharp and final. It's over. You've stolen enough. You've lied enough. You won't hurt him again. I looked at Marek then, the man I'd loved for 15 months, his face twisted in rage and panic as they dragged him toward the door. He fought them like an animal, but it was useless. He screamed my name as they pulled him out. Kael, don't let them take me. Kael. I stared at him, the weight of every lie, every touch, every whispered word crashing through me, and I said nothing. The men dragged him out. The door slammed behind them. His voice was gone. The silence that followed was heavier than all the shouting before it. I staggered to the table, bracing myself against it, my body shaking. My head spun. My heart ached like it had been ripped out. Finally, I lifted my eyes to Rafe. Why? My voice cracked. Why would you do this to me? Like this? He didn't flinch. Because you never listened, and I couldn't let him take everything from you. I stared. You were blind, Kael. Stupid in love. You couldn't see him for what he was, no matter how many times he showed you. And when someone shows you who they are over and over again. His voice softened, though his eyes didn't. You should believe them. Tears burned my eyes. So you decided to play God? I decided to save you, he said simply. Even if you hate me for it. The words cracked me open. Before I could stop myself, I broke. The sobs tore free, violent and raw. Rafe stepped forward, wrapping his arms around me, holding me like he had when we were boys and the world was too heavy. I let him, collapsing into him, my body shaking with grief. For a moment, I let myself be held. Then he whispered, almost too softly, I'm here for you, Kay. And he is right, I do, I always have. I shoved him back hard. Don't, I choked out. Not now, I can't, I just need. My breath stuttered. I just need to be alone, head out of here, away from all of this. Rafe's jaw tightened, but he nodded once. If you need me, he said steady, I'll always be here. I turned away. My steps were heavy, but they carried me to the door. My hand shook as I pulled it open and stepped out. The door clicked shut. The hallway stretched ahead, sterile and quiet, the carpet swallowing my steps. I felt like I was walking through fog, every nerve in me frayed, my body aching everywhere. Marek's fists had landed. My lips stung. My ribs screamed. My heart was nothing but ashes. 15 months. 15 months of lies. 15 months of loving a mask, of being gaslit and twisted until I turned against the one friend who had always stood by me. And now Rafe, my best friend, my betrayer, my savior. I didn't know which. I was grateful. I was furious. I was hollow. The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside. As the floors ticked down, I closed my eyes and thought of Marek's laugh, of Rafe's arms, of my father's voice, of every wall I'd built only to watch them crumble. Maybe I was free now, but freedom had never felt so bitter. When the doors opened to the storm outside, the wind hit my face like a slap. Rain soaked me in seconds, washing blood and tears down my skin. And through the roar of it all, one echo threaded through my mind, soft and merciless. Do you even know him at all? I didn't. Not Marek. Not Rafe. Not even myself. But as I stepped into the storm, one truth felt sharper than all the lies. At least now, finally, I was walking away. The end. Thanks for listening to the story The Masked Stranger. If you enjoy this story, share your enthusiasm in the comment section and don't forget to hit the subscribe and notification button so you don't miss any story uploads. See you in the next one.